Hi, I'm Regana Tosh. I'm Regana Tosh.
You truly embody the character. Never let go.
Let's try that again. Okay. Hi, I'm Roderick Garr. You may remember me as Regana Tosh on DS9, the off-face alien. I'm talking to Matt on Trek Untold.
Welcome to Trek Untold, the Star Trek podcast that goes beyond the stars. I'm your host, Matthew Kaplowitz. This week's guest is someone who I'm pleased to share with you today because, quite simply, it was just a lot of fun for me to talk to him. We nerded out about movies, about TV shows, and of course, about Star Trek. And this performer had some important acting advice and real heavy life lessons that he has gifted to all of us during this episode. Today on Trek Untold, we're meeting with Roderick Garr. Roderick played Regana Tosh on the 4th season DS9 episode Hippocratic Oath, where he made some shifty plans with Quark that were foiled by both Worf and Odo. But beyond Star Trek, you may have seen Roderick in shows and films like Drop Squad, Sister Sister, Smart Guy, Mind Games, Living Single, In the House, Law & Order, and more, including some work in the theater that we're going to chat about today, and also some behind-the-scenes work as a producer. Roderick is a storyteller extraordinaire, and has had some experiences that are very different from mine, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners out there. So I hope you'll enjoy the stories about navigating through Star Trek and Hollywood from his one-of-a-kind point of view. So with all that said, let's get ready to meet the man under that Regana Tosh makeup as we chat with the inimitable Roderick Garr. But before we begin this week's episode, I want to remind you to follow Trek Untold on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Trek Untold, all one word. You can get show updates, check out some fun memes, and let me know what you think about what's going on with the current events in the Star Trek universe. You can also support this show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/TrekUntold, where you can support this show for as little as $2 a month. At higher tiers, you can listen to the shows before they come out, know about my guests well in advance, and even have a chance to ask them questions, get transcripts of these episodes to make sure you get all the info, and more benefits coming soon, including watch parties and live streams. But that's all dependent on more fans like you coming over and letting me know you want to be a part of events like that. If you want some Trek Untold merchandise, check out our store for gear and apparel, including shirts, hats, stickers, water bottles, notebooks, and a whole lot more. New designs will be added throughout the year, so it's always worth taking a peek. Trek Untold also has an Amazon shop where you can peruse everything Star Trek, sci-fi, and geeky on Amazon in one convenient location. If you're looking for a gift for the Trekkie in your life, or maybe want to see some of my favorite non-Star Trek things that you can get for yourself, check out the link for my Amazon shop in the show notes on the audio version and in the description below this video on YouTube. If you're listening to us on iTunes or any other audio platforms that allow for ratings and reviews, please leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review to help out this show. If you're watching it on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to us at youtube.com/TrekUntold and give the video a thumbs up and a comment. All of these things help more people find this show and to continue growing and bringing you awesome guests each and every week. Now, without further ado, let's beam in this week's guest. Computer, access interview file. And welcome back to Trek Untold, and now joining us the other side of the screen, all the way from Buffalo, New York, we're joined by Mr. Roderick Garr. Roderick, how's it going today?
Excellent, man. Great day. Great day.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's rare that I get to talk to somebody who's actually not only just in my time zone, but also in my state. So kudos right away to you for that.
Oh, man, no problem. No problem. Because that was the whole thing. I was like, just want to let you know I'm on the East Coast. I thought you were on the West Coast.
No, thankfully, we're both New Yorkers, so that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. Hey, nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Absolutely. Roderick, I want to ask you the first question I ask all my guests on this show, and that's, what's your earliest memory of Star Trek? Did you grow up watching it?
Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't really a Trekkie. However, I have cousins and a brother that were all into, all my cousins, older cousins, they were into it. My brother was a Trekkie, so I gleaned everything through them. And, I saw the show, of course, a couple times, but, I was younger than them. So, they were older. Like my brother's like 6 years older than me. And some of my cousins are 4 and 5 years old. So they were really, really into it. And so, I would be like, oh, okay, that's cool, But then as I got older, I understood the significance of Star Trek, and then like would watch the reruns and go like, oh, that's cool. And then especially when they started doing the new versions of it, like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. And so I would get a chance to see things from time to time.
So you mentioned significance of Star Trek, but what was the significance for you? When you think about Star Trek, what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, Nichelle Nichols. I mean,
late great Nichelle.
I mean, for me, to see someone that looked like me on television at that time, that was big. That was really big for me. And she was beautiful. She was dressed like everybody else. She wasn't separate. She was in the crew with everybody. So to me, I thought that was so significant. And every time I saw, I was just like, oh my goodness, I was just so excited about seeing her, as a kid. That was the significance for me.
I'm sure you probably already know the story about Nichelle and why she stayed on Star Trek, right?
Yes, and Martin Luther King. Yes, I've heard the story a million times. And every time I hear it, it takes my breath away, because when she tells that story, she said she was, she thought it was somebody else, some Star Trek fan. And, she said, oh, whatever Star Trek fan, he gonna have to wait because my leader's standing over Dr. King's here. And he's like, I'm your fan. And then for him to, and what a lot of people need to understand, for an actor, for someone to come up to you, and especially Dr. King to come to her and say the things he said to her in the significant way he said them to her, that is just, she said it took her breath away. It would have done the same thing to me. And that's the thing. I've had situations like that where someone had to remind me of the significance of something that I did, because we as actors, we do it and then we move on, and continue. And then we're always looking at the next thing. But we have to understand a lot of times that when we do something significant, other people are watching and it affects them. And we are not always, we are not always aware as to the magnitude of what something might see. Because when I was a young boy and I saw somebody that looked like, when I was a young boy and I saw Sammy Davis Jr. on TV when I was 5 years old, I saw him and I looked at the TV and he was on the Ed Sullivan Show, if I'm not mistaken. And I pointed at the TV and I said, I want to do that.
And just also to wrap up that note, Nichelle, too, just in case you don't know this part of the story either, she also campaigned a lot for NASA to get more people, more black people interested in space. And that led to Mae Jemison joining up. And Mae Jemison, oddly enough, ended up on Star Trek eventually. So
exactly. And I've seen all the pictures of them together. I think, it's so significant. It's so significant. So significant.
Well, let's just jump in now to the secret origin story of Roderick Garr. And I feel like you just teased a little part of the story of what I'm going to ask you here. But and we already mentioned a little bit of it. But yeah, so Roderick, tell me, where were you born? Who were your parents? What did they do? And what did little Roderick want to be when he grew up? What did little Roddy want to be?
Well, actually, it was little Stevie. Okay. Yeah, well, see, my full name is Roderick Stephen Garr. The story is my mom and dad had a bet. So it was a boy, my dad would name it. Girl, my mom would name him. So, of course, I show up. And my father says, Roderick. And so then my mother's like, I want to name the baby. And so he says, okay, you can give him his middle name. So she says Stephen, but Stphen. And so I was a preemie. So I was 5 pounds flat.
Oh, wow.
And so when my mom and dad had me, Roderick is this long, I'm this little, and they're like, this doesn't fit. So they nicknamed me Steve to start off. I was born in Buffalo, New York. My mother's name is Jeanette Helen Garr. My father's name was Leonard Jerome Garr. Like I said, when I was, a little kid, 5 years old, saw Sammy Davis Jr. on TV, said I wanted to do that. And that's what I looked for. So then fast forward to me when I was 11 years old, Sammy Davis Jr. was coming in town. And in the suburbs of Buffalo, they have this entertainment venue called Melody Fair. Unfortunately, it's no longer there. But at the time, it was an outdoor amphitheater with a tent on it. And the significant thing about Melody Fair was that it was in the round. So it had a stage that went around in circles. So Sammy Davis comes to town. I bug my mother and father. We got to go. 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 They know I'm crazy about him because anytime he comes on TV, they were like, "Oh, you guys on TV? Come." So we get tickets, we go. And of course, this is in the 70s, early 70s. And we have the Polaroid camera with the bulb and everything. My dad's got the whole Megillah. So we go out there. And during one section of the show, Mr. Davis goes around, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this point of the show, if anyone would like to come down and take a picture, please feel free to do so." And so my dad looks at me and says, "Do you want to take a picture?" And I'm like, "Of course I want to go take a picture." And so he gives me the camera. He sets me up and makes sure everything's just right. And so I get up and I'm a little chubby kid. And so I waddle down to the stage. And the thing with him, with the stage, it's in the round. So as I was coming around, he was coming around and past me. And so he was going the other way. And then I took the picture. And of course, it was a big flash, as they were. And so, but he was going in the opposite direction. So then I'm walking back to my seat after I take the picture. He goes, wait, hold it. Stop. He stops the whole show. He said, "Who just took that picture?" And then I go, "I did." And he goes, "How could you get a good picture of me, baby? I was going in the opposite direction." And then he said, "Where's your father?" I said, "He's over there." He said, "Go give him the camera." He said, "Come here." So he pulls me up on stage and he starts talking to me. And he just talks to me. And the funny thing was the garb of the day were hot pants. I happened to have on a pair of hot pants, and so did he. But he had a shirt with a vest on, and I just had a nice shirt. And so we're talking, and he asked me, "Would you like to meet my daughter?" And of course, a nervous kid, I said, "No." But we talked a little while, and then so he said, "All right, let your dad take a picture of us." And so he's like, "Put your arm around me, baby. Come on." And so we took the picture, and I went back, sat down. It's a wonderful experience. Fast forward to 1981 when I'm going to Howard as an actor, going, to study theater. We go back again to see him. Of course, the show is wonderful. After the show's over, go backstage once again to see if I could get the program that we had with the 2 pictures and the ticket stubs to get signed. Unfortunately, the gentleman at the door misunderstood, and he thought that I wanted to give it to Mr. Davis, and that wasn't the case. I wanted him to sign it. He was like, "Oh, Mr. Davis is kind of tired. C'est la vie." But what happened through going back, from that point, I was in music school. I'm classically trained. I'm a classically trained vocalist. I've been singing professionally since I was 15 years old. One of the things what happened after I started going to music school, one of my mother's friends, she heard about a workshop they had at one of the local centers, the Langston Hughes Center. They were having an acting workshop, and they knew that I was possibly interested in that. So I got the information and I went. And at the end of the week of the workshop, the gentleman, Ed Smith, who was a professor out at the University of Buffalo, your father would be familiar with UB, he pulled my mom aside and he said, "Your son has talent. You really need to get him some formal training." So then, of course, there was a family discussion. And my parents asked me if that's something that I wanted to do. And I said, yes, very much so. So, there was the decision to, do I want to do driver's ed or do I want to take acting classes? And I said, no, I would rather take acting classes.
Just so I get an idea too, were your parents in the creative field, or were they doing other things? And how I guess it sounds like they're very encouraging of you. So I'm wondering what they did.
Okay, this will be a very interesting thing for you to hear. My father is from Louisville, Kentucky. My father, growing up in high school, he graduated from Central High School in 1942. He got a scholarship to college because he was a graphic artist.
Okay.
However, in 1942, in Louisville, Kentucky, a black man wasn't supposed to be a graphic artist. And the thing is, he didn't play football. And so they took my father's college scholarship and gave it to someone who played football. So then, fast forward to my mom. She, I think it was graduating from high school in 52. And she went to Fosdick Maston High School. She was also a graphic artist. And she was on the advanced track. And one of her instructors, I do believe, wasn't happy with her being in the program and started to harass her, which she eventually ended up quitting. So what ended up happening is that both of my parents are unrequited artists. And so I do believe because of that, they did encourage me in any creative endeavors that I ever wanted to do.
That's really interesting. And, telling me this experience right now, too, I'm wondering how much of that had an impact on your decision to go to Howard University, since you mentioned that as well.
Whoa. I don't know. Are you familiar with Buffalo, New York?
Only a little bit. I went to school upstate for a few years also, so I have an idea of what it's like up there. But not in time period you were there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Can't time travel yet, sorry.
Yeah, of course not. Well, let's give you an example. After I left here in 81 to go away to school, I read in the magazine that Buffalo was the 9th most segregated city in America.
Wow.
And when I read that, I was like, that's about right.
And just a reminder, this is New York, too, which is, considered to be one of the more progressive states, but people forget that's the 5 boroughs. We're not talking about once you get upstate.
Yeah, this is Western New York.
Yeah.
We're like Canada. And, so as of June, May, when the shootings happened here, the statistic came out, we've moved up to the 6th most segregated city in America. And so it wasn't an easy place to grow up. I had to fight for a lot of things. I was denied many things that were supposed to come my way. And unlike a lot of others, I went to a lot of schools where, give you an example, when I started going to private school, I was the only black male in 6th grade. So, I had to fight a lot, and I had to endure a lot of slights. And even when I get on the same platform as the Ivy League people and fighting them toe to toe, still in the end, I get usurped. But here's the thing, having a good family, teachers and stuff in my corner, knowing that at the time that I was superior. So understanding, and because it was like something that happened, and my music teacher, Mr. Hilliard, it was in my sophomore year, and I lost out on something on a contest that I should have won. And I was really upset. I came back to music school that Monday evening. I told Mr. Hilliard everything that happened. He just sat there very cavalierly, listened to everything I had to say. And he said, well, Roderick, you have a decision to make. He said, either you set your mores on Buffalo or you set your mores on the world. And I was like, got it. And so then I knew that it was very important for me to leave. And when that decision came, I first wanted to go to NYU, USC, and things of that nature. But then upon further deliberation, I had to really think about if I'm going to go to school, I want to go to a school where I'm going to be able to actually work. Hmm. And I had to, so I started to rethink, where what schools I could go to that were more liberal, and I would get a chance to actually display my talents, and I would be nurtured and things of that nature. And my aunt Gail, my mom's younger sister, the cool aunt, she did me a favor that I didn't even understand. I would go spend my summers in DC, and this one time we were like, she's like, cause she was the head researcher for Meet the Press at the time. And she said, okay, we're going to hang out for the day. You're going to go to work with me. We're going to go to lunch. We're going to do a little shopping in Georgetown. And then she goes, oh, Howard's in the neighborhood. Why don't we just drop by?
How convenient.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even know I was being set up. Didn't know. Beautiful. Matt, let me paint the picture for you. A beautiful August Saturday. Sun is shining. School has started. So the students, the population are frolicking about. There's music playing. There are girls. Oh, gorgeous girls all around. And I'm just like, and my aunt's like, she sees my neck snapping around. She said, well, we don't have to rush. We could stroll. And I said, yes, we should stroll. And I come back to Buffalo, and I tell Mr. Hilliard, who was my music teacher, he was the head of the music school I was going to. And I said, Mr. Hilliard, I just went to Howard. It's amazing. He said, well, Roderick, they have the #1 theater program in America. And I said, they do? Really? He said, oh, yes, many people have come out of there. I was like, oh, okay. And I did my research and found out Debbie Allen, Felicia Rashad, Owen Dotson, so many more that I can't even, can't even name right now. And so that was one of the reasons why I went there, because I wanted to go to a school where I knew I could get a chance to work. And going to Howard, Matthew, was the best decision I ever made in my life.
So on that note, now you are at Howard University, and I really want to hear what you learned. Let's just say, what's one lesson that you learned that stuck with you? Because I can't say I've ever spoke to anybody on the show who's attended that school. So I'd love to hear what piece of that school you brought back with you after your 4 years there, or however many years it was you were there.
I was there for 5 years.
5 years. Okay. Is that a master's program?
No. It was undergrad.
Okay.
But it was a hard program. I ended up doing a minor too. And so, but then I also did some different things. I also took some grad courses while I was still in undergrad too.
Okay.
But to give you what you want about Howard, like I said, it was the best decision I ever made. That school let me know that I was loved, cared for. It was discipline. It was hard discipline, sometimes very rough and critical, that would make you doubt yourself. However, if it hadn't been for the trials and tribulations that I went through there, they prepared me for the business. Because what I realized after going there, because one of the things that happens when you go to Howard, especially if you're in the drama department, you're in a bubble for the time that you're there. And it's very concentrated and it's very intense, extremely intense. And not everybody makes it out of there. I can remember the multitudes of people that started with me my freshman year, but then the under 10 people that actually graduated with a degree, from when I started. It was, okay, so Howard is a microcosm of what the world is. One of the first lessons I learned my freshman year, I was nominated. I got in the first show of the year. I was in the third show of the year. Plus, I got cast in another professional theater company, the DC Black Repertory within town. So I was nominated for Freshman of the Year. Now, plus I was in the choir, plus I was sang in the choir, plus I was in the chapel choir, which was a special magical group that sang every Sunday morning at Rankin Chapel, which was a paid position. So I was doing a lot of different things. However, I did not win. Actually, what happened was, who later became my frat brother, ended up winning the prize. And the lesson that I learned from that was just because you should win does not mean that you will win. Mm. And that I have to have the intestinal fortitude to know within my own self what this work is like. Not having to depend upon accolades like that, awards, to tell me that I'm doing a good job. What then I learned also was to also take on good mentors. And I got a lot of good mentors at Howard. Dr. Jeffrey Newman, who was the chairman of our department. Dr. Carol Singleton, who was over the theater history, excuse me, theater history portion of the drama department. Joe Selman, who was over stage construction. Ed Love, who was a master sculptor and artist in the art department. And Jeff Donaldson, who a master artist within the art department. Frank Smith, another one. So I sought out very good mentors, and also Joe Walker, who is the Pulitzer Prize winning playwright who wrote The River Niger, who was one of my professors, and another one of my champions, and another one of my great mentors. So what I was able to happen was I made myself open to these men to mentor me in how to be an artist, how to live an ethical, principled, and driven existence, and having to understand that just because there's not a lot of hoopla around you, that does not mean you're not on the right path. Because many times, things are discovered in the dark. They're not always in the light, and you have to be, I learned that I had to be aware of being disciplined of the craft that I was pursuing. And, there can be, sometimes you just don't get it sometimes. And sometimes it takes a long time to get to that place where you're actually, as an actor, recreating life. And so it takes a while to get to that. So like I said, I opened myself up to mentorship, which has helped me along the way, which also taught me that being mentored, then I in turn have to also mentor the ones coming behind me.
It's good lessons to learn. And, because this is a Star Trek show, I got to bring it back to Star Trek for a second.
Of course
I do. Yeah. Because that first story you mentioned, it reminded me of, I think my favorite Picard quote, which is when he's talking to Data in one of these episodes, and he tells Data, it's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. It's called life. That very much reminded me of that. And it's a great quote. And that's, you told me it's just living proof of that,
Oh, man. Yeah. Man. Oh, man. Love that.
So, Roderick, do you remember what your first professional gig was on a television screen?
Ooh.
Going back.
Okay. First television gig. Speak Up, Speak Out, Learning to Say No to Drugs. It was a piece I booked. I was still living in DC after graduating from Howard. I do believe we shot it in 1980. Ooh. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah. 1987, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Summer of 1987. It showed on PBS, and then it showed on PBS a couple of times after that. That would be my first on TV. But I booked a film when I was still in college in 1985. And the name of the film was called Good to Go, which later turned, as it went to DVD, Short Fuse.
I'll let you choose then, since Good to Go was the first film role, and the PBS thing was the first TV role, so I'll let you decide which one you want to have here. But what is something you learned being on a set for the very first time? Something that was totally new to you. It's something that has stuck with you and stayed with you.
Wow. Okay. From the PBS piece, calm down. Young actors think that you got bring so much energy and talking so fast. Just like, and I just remember hearing my voice, and it was up so high. I was talking so. I'm like, it was just like, dude, what are you doing? Stop, please stop it. So that was the one thing I learned from that piece. The one thing I learned from Good to Go, that, because Harris Yulin was in that film, also Art Garfunkel. And I started watching, other people like Harris Yulin. I watched what he did. So that's when I started really focusing in on watching another actor work on set besides just watching a movie, and understanding everything that's going on outside of this one little frame, and understanding that, the lesson was theater's out here, television's in here, film is here.
And shout out to Harris Yulin, who is also a Star Trek alumni. One of the best episodes of DS9 Duet.
Oh, yes. And good guy, too. Good guy.
Good to hear that, yeah.
Very nice man. Very nice man. I know he doesn't remember me, but he was nice to me. I was like, 23 years old. I was just like, hi, how you doing? And he was like, how are you? He was very nice. He was a very nice man.
So, Roderick, you have worked with the entire Mowry family. I'm going to talk some sitcoms now. So you did Sister Sister with Tia and Tamara, and then you did Smart Guy with Taj. So, I found both those episodes. I was able to watch them and find where you were. So I would love to hear what memories you have of being on that set. And I know you really didn't do too many scenes directly with them, especially in Smart Guy. You weren't really in a scene with Taj, but any memories you have from those shows. And I just want to make a note here, too. It is just really cool that you did 2 shows with the Mowry family. That's just like such a fun little fact.
Very nice people. Very, very, the girls, wonderful. But see, actually, something that you don't know, I was actually a stand-in on Sister Sister for a little while. So that's how that particular role came up. I was a stand-in for Tim Reed.
Oh, nice! Wow.
Yeah, because I previously I had done stand-in work for Bill Cosby in New York, and so when I had come out to L.A., one of the young ladies who worked with me in New York made the stage manager for Living Single aware that I was out there and that I was available. I worked there. Then the Maynard Virgil, who also worked in New York, he had me working on a couple of different shows. And so I went to it was Maynard's assistant who ended up working over there, asked me if I would come over and work with Tim. And I was like, of course, fine. We got along. It just happened that, they liked me. They asked one day, would you mind doing a part on the show? I was like, oh, no problem. Whatever you guys need. The girls, like I said, were really nice, wonderful people. And it was so funny because when I went to do Smart Guy, so I go over to do the show. And, Jason and all the other guys, we meet. And because I think a couple of us had already met in passing. And so I met Taj for the first time. And so we're shooting this one day. And the next day comes with Tia and Tamara come up. They're like, you work on our show, don't you? And I was like, yes, okay, I thought you, I'm sorry we didn't come over and speak to you sooner. And she was like, I didn't know. She said, I see you around, but we don't, because like you said, she and I never really, we didn't work together. So we were never really formally introduced. So they took it upon themselves to come over and like I said, very nice young ladies. They took it upon themselves to come over and introduce themselves to finally go, okay. And then after that, of course, then, would you like to do a part on the show? Kind of a thing,
That's a fun story. It's good to hear that such a nice group of people to work with. It's always good to hear about any show.
Oh, yeah.
And, Roderick, if I may compliment you for a moment as well, I just want to tell you, if sexy was Oreos, you'd be double stuffed.
Oh, okay. Woo!
That's the proof I watched your show. I'm talking Living Single now. For anybody who doesn't know what the context is there, it's Living Single.
That's Living Single. Oh, man.
And you had to say that to Queen Latifah.
Yes.
Talk to me about that scene. I got to hear about this story.
Oh, my. Okay. Now, that is a very fun story. Now, I was also a stand-in on that show when I first couple of years I got out to California. I was John Hinton's stand-in. Oh. So, I already knew Kim Fields. I already knew Erica Alexander because we had worked together on The Cosby Show. Kim Coles was somewhat familiar with me because she went to high school with one of my best friends. T.C. Carson and we had met at a film festival. So I didn't know John. I knew Dana, Queen Latifah, through me working in the music industry, doing videos and things. So we knew each other in passing. So I came on the show to stand in for John to work with him. And so there were many times that I would be filling in for another actor who wasn't there. And it got to the point where, I would go off and do other shows and, couldn't be there. And John and I became kind of close. And it got to the point where it was like, well, why can't Rod come and work on this show? Just, he goes to work on other shows. Why can't he get an audition? So came to a point where came to a head. Few things came to a head at the time. And it was a stink was made about a few things. And I was one of them. So I got an opportunity to audition for the show. I booked the role. Wonderful. John Hinton was one of the people. I shout out to him. He didn't have to do this. He stood up for me and, was my advocate saying that, I should be on the show, which you got to love somebody for that because, not a lot of people do that. But the interesting thing about doing the show, I had a great time working with everybody. But I can't remember John's acting coach. And this was a great lesson I learned very early on, is that I learned that I have to be able to pay attention to everything around me and understand the job of television. And I say it this way. When you saw me do that scene, you couldn't really see my face, could you?
No, I was trying to get nice, good screenshots that our folks who are watching the video version have seen, but you kind of just bent over and disappeared.
Yeah, because my head was down because I was looking at Queen Latifah, who was sitting down there. So case in point, scene came off, it got the laugh and everything we were supposed to get. After it was over, John's acting coach said, that was a great scene, good. You got the laugh and everything. Too bad nobody could see your face. And I was like, huh? He said, yeah. He said, when you were standing there, you looked down. And so your focus was down here where you should have been up and your eyes should have been going down. And I was like, oh my goodness, but here's the lesson. In television, I was an ancillary character. The main characters, they had the shots of all the girls. I was just coming in, delivering a line just to keep the story along. So the director has so many things to worry about. He don't have time to try to coach me to tell me, pick your head up. Hey, if I ain't pick my head up, that's not his problem. He's got more things to do. So that was a lesson that I had to learn. And you could say it's a costly lesson because it's a nice scene, but I can't use it.
Yeah, very true. I know we just talked about the director's got other things to worry about, but I am going to call the director there. I looked him up, Chuck Vincent, that's his name. I am going to say he should have said something about that, though. That's a pretty noticeable flub to make for someone who's, doing this,
But check this out. You can't. Chuck's my boy. That's my dude. I met him. Chuck first hired me to be a stand-in on the Cosby Show. So
I can't say anything then.
No harm, no foul. But it's a lesson that I had to learn.
Trek Untold will return momentarily.
Trek Untold is sponsored by Triple Fiction Productions. Celebrating 15 years in business in 2023, TFP creates 3D printed Star Trek and sci-fi inspired items that fit into any collection. Whether you're a cosplayer who wants a Starfleet phaser, a Bajoran tricorder, or a Klingon dagger, or a toy collector looking for that special accessory or diorama to make your figures truly stand out, Triple Fiction Productions has exactly what you need. And for you figure fanatics, that includes products that are the perfect size for Galoob, Mego, Playmates, and everything in between. All products are 3D printed in the US, with new designs constantly being updated on their website. Repeat customers can sign up for TFP's loyalty program for free, which is a great way to save money as you build your collection. Repeat customers can sign up for TFP's loyalty program for free, which is a great way to save money as you build your collection. Repeat customers can sign up for TFP's loyalty program for free, where the more you order, the more discounts you receive. TFP also has a pay what you want section, where clearance or misprinted items are available at a discounted price. Best of all, every product can be shipped worldwide. As a special bonus for listeners of this show, Trek Untold has a special discount code just for you. Enter Untold10 at checkout for 10% off of all orders with no minimum purchase required. That's 10% off using Untold10. To see all of their products, head to triple-fictionproductions.net. Or to stay up to date on their newest products, find them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Triple Fiction Productions, where something is only impossible until it happens.
Have you ever watched a YouTube video and said you wish you could do what they were doing? Whether it's the filming, the production, the editing. Maybe you listen to your favorite podcast and you wondered how they put that show together, how they got that great sound quality, what gear they use, how much does it cost to get started? Or maybe you checked out a video or read a book about one of your favorite entrepreneurs and it made you say, I want to live that life. I want to do what they do. Then check out my podcast, Toys and Tech of the Trade. I'm Rich Butler, and I've been making podcasts for almost 2 decades, speaking with experts across all fields to get to the bottom of the hows and whys of their achievements. Each week, I sit down with these amazing people who have carved their own path in life and share the gadgets, the gear, and the tech that they rely on to create their content, the methods that they use to run their business, and the habits and trends that are part of their daily routine and their way of life. And all of that, of course, gets put together to make them successful. We pull back the curtain on the process to help you understand what these people do differently so that you can draw inspiration and get ideas and be inspired so that you can take action today. This podcast is inspiring, educational, it's enlightening, and most of all, it's a lot of fun. I want you to join me on this journey so that you can use the tools and advice shared in this podcast to level up your business or creative endeavors, giving you all the tips, tactics, and tools so that you can transform what you're doing from a side hustle into a full-time lifestyle where you can collect a paycheck for doing what you love. Check out Toys and Tech of the Trade wherever you listen to podcasts and check out the RageWorks Network at RageWorksNetwork.com for more info on this podcast and all of the many other great shows that we have on the RageWorks Podcast Network. That's Toys and Tech of the Trade with some assembly required.
All right, so Roderick, let's beam into our Star Trek discussion now. And you played Regana Tosh on the DS9 fourth season episode.
Alien.
Yes, on the episode Hippocratic Oath, very shifty alien doing some dirty deeds with Quark that are not done dirt cheap. So talk to me about how you got this role. Do you remember anything about the audition process?
Oh, I remember everything. I was with Film Artists and Associates at the time. I do believe it was 1995-ish, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, when I did it. And I got the call to go to Paramount to audition. I can't, for some reason, I cannot remember the casting director's name right now.
Was that Junie Lowry Johnson or Ron Surma?
Ron Surma.
Okay.
It was Ron Surma. Good man. Really good man. I really liked him. We had a good rapport. And he brought me in, you know, I just got the sides when I got there. Looked at him for 5 minutes, looked at him, was like, okay, I got something. For some reason, I really enveloped the first, I have my resources, and I really put something into that, which I didn't understand, but he was very excited about what I was doing. And then the second part, when Quark comes in and it busts me, and I'm like, what is going on here? Then I kind of threw that away, and he was like, no, whoa, wait, stop. No, you had me in the first part, and then you sound like a Valley guy, Valley boy in the end of it. No, don't do that. Give me all of that, the first part, give me that all the way through. And I was like, okay, go back. He said, that's what I'm talking about. That's what he said, you got to call back. And I was like, okay. And he told me what time. He's like, that day. So I was working at Kinko's in the Valley on Ventura and Laurel Canyon at the time. So I got a call to work, and I was like, there was a deal with my boss. She said, anytime you have an audition, you go to your audition, you just call us, let us know what's happening, and you handle your business. Your job is always going to be here. Huh. So I call, and that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I call, tell her I got a call back, and I tell her what it's for. She's excited. Okay, great. Don't worry about it. Just do come to work when you're done. So I go in there, and when I go into audition, there's a room full of people. I mean, some people I know, some pretty well-known actors. One gentleman, Robert, I can't remember Robert's last name. He was on The Closer. I forgot his name, but he ended up being on the episode also. But because I'd worked with him with his theater company in LA. So I saw him and a bunch of other guys. And of course, when you go in there with all those heavy hitters, they're like, oh, young buck coming in here trying, what are you doing in here? Oh, and I'm just like, hey, I'm just trying to come in here, just trying to work a little bit, But unbeknownst to me, Rene Auberjonois was the director for the episode. So I didn't know that until I got in the room. So, of course, Ron gives me he gives Rene the pitch. Is like, hey, this guy here. Oh, Rene's like, oh, really? Oh, okay. And so I'm reading with someone else, but I can see Rene out of my right peripheral the whole time I'm reading. And when I'm doing my lines, I see him just like bubbling and just like, he's in his seat and just bouncing around and all this stuff. And he's like, ooh. And he's like, let's do that again. Let's do that again. And we do it again. And he's like, and he goes, Roderick, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you. He grabbed, that's one of the grabs. Thank you so much for coming. Said, thank you, sir. Leave. Next day, agent calls, you booked it, you got it. And I'm just like, I'm floored because I am now within the pantheon of the Star Trek universe.
Yeah.
I call one of my best friends, David Johnson, who's also a director. He's directed a bunch of films I was in. And because he's a Trekkie. So he takes me through the whole thing. He said, okay, what you have to do now? He said, when you go, I told him what I'm going to be, the makeup and everything. He said, okay, what you want to do, you want to get yourself one of those portable cameras. You take it with you. He said, you document the whole process of the makeup, everything.
Yeah.
He said, this will be something that will be just priceless for time immemorial. And he said, just really take it all in when you go there. And I was like, okay, great. So I go there and I go for a test. And so they're doing a test for the costume, but I had to go for a costume fitting. So it was like a leather out. It was the outfit, but then it had this leather cape that I had on. But the actual cape, they ended up making it was patchwork leather, and they ended up dyeing it with a hood and everything on it. Very ominous. It looked wonderful. I remember practicing with the cape to try to do something cool with it. So then I got a chance to sit in the office of Michael Westmore, the makeup guy.
What is that office like? I've heard stories about the trailers, but what's that office look like?
It's everything's in there. Everything. Everything's in there. Everything's in there. And, I'm in the movies. I know of the legacy of him and his family, his father and his grandfather, and so we just start talking. Do you know, we sat, and the one thing, that my parents always taught me, especially with my dad, he was like, if you want to learn about a person, ask them about their job. He said they would be just so happy to tell you what they do. And so I was fascinated, very inquisitive. So I just started asking him all sorts of questions. He started telling me about his life and just how he started out doing movies and how he'd been doing movies for so many years. And then it got to the point where he was on the road so much. He was trying to, balance the family and business and everything. Then he said, when the whole Star Trek thing, he said, okay, I can shift to this. He said, Rod, you don't know how what a difference being able to come home to dinner every night with your family makes for your life. And I never forgot him saying that. And just all the other, just wonderful stories that he told me about on different movie sets. And, it was like, well, what's this from? And, because you're in the office and what's that? What's that? And he's like, that's a good one. It is a good, and then, then of course, and we'll see what happened here. And then what people really don't know is, it was what
the Museum of Westmore.
Oh my goodness. I just sat, I kid you not, Matthew. I sat in there like over an hour. And we just sat there, we're kicking for like over an hour, we're just talking. And then he was like, okay, well, let me take you, go get your test. And so, and then that was a whole thing because I went to go get a test of the makeup. So
I've seen the end of that before, right?
Yeah, it's a 3.5 hour makeup job. So when they did it the first time, because they had to take the picture that was on that ID screen when they pull me up. So that is from the test. So when they did that, they didn't smack it and seal it to my face. It was on there. Oh, I got to tell you, but here's the great story. It's the great story. And then it leads to the other part. So as I said to you, I was working at Kinko's and I was one of the managers there. So one day, Armin Shimerman comes into the store. Now, of course, nobody knows what he looks like. However, I'm very good with voices. So I'm at the register and he says something to me and he comes up to the register and I go like, I lean on and say, are you on Star Trek? And he goes, oh, how'd you know? I said, I'm very good with voices. And he said, he was like, apparently so. And so we became friendly with one another because he would come to Kinko's from time to time. So one night he came in there. I was like, Armin, what, you got to die and go to heaven in order to get an audition for the show? He said, Rod, I know what you mean. He said, my wife goes through the same thing and I'm on the show. And he said, so we had that conversation because when he found out I was an actor, then it was like, oh, okay. Of course, they're bonds. So that first test day, I go through the makeup and everything. Like I said, they didn't really adhere it to my face, so there were gaps. And one of the things they did tell me was be careful when you're going around because you're going to get overheated, you're going to sweat, da-da-da-da-da. So then the stage man, the AD, Brian, he was leading me around, taking me places, and we happened to see Armin. And he was like, oh, Armin, this is, he said, this is a gentleman who's going to be working with you tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. And I said, and he goes, oh, yes. And then I said, Armin, we've met before. And of course he goes, oh, really? He was like, oh, really? Because of course I know people have, said that before. And I said, yes, sir. I said, I can mention one word and you'll know exactly who I am. And he said, and what is that, sir? He said, and what is that word, my friend? I said, Kinkos. He went, Rod! Oh my goodness! He ran over to me, hugged me, and he was like, I knew it. I knew you get it. He was so happy for me. He was just like, oh man, he's like, yes. He was just over the moon for me. So, of course, once again, he was giving me, saying like, okay, make sure you stay hydrated. Don't do a lot of running around because you're going to get sweaty. Of course, I didn't listen. So I didn't listen. And I'm running out. And after a while, I start sweating. So I had 3 sets of nostrils. So I started sweating out of 2 sets of my nostrils. So there's water just rolling down my face. And they're still trying to do the test. So they got to dry me off and come over with a fan. They got to sit me in front of a fan and everything. So it was really kind of funny the first day.
It's allergy season for Regana Tosh.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah. It was really kind of funny. So the next day I had myself together. One of the things that I was fasting that morning. So they gave me a bunch of really nice juices to keep me cool. And I took the note of not a lot of movement, stay by the fan. And one thing, let me say about Armin Shimerman, he treated me like a prince. He made sure he went to the crew and made sure he was like, Rod's going to need this. Make sure he has this, da, 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 boom, 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 boom. He needs this here, da, 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 boom, boom, boom. He made sure that I had no wants whatsoever. And it was then, he was like, Rob, would you like to rehearse? I said, oh, yes, I would love to rehearse. Well, let's rehearse. And I cannot thank him enough for the way he treated me. I mean, it was just absolutely wonderful. And unfortunately, I think the treatment I received from him and others on set kind of got Michael, the guy who played Worf, what's his name?
Micheal Dorn?
Yes, Micheal Dorn. I think he might have got a little miffed by that. Early on, things were fine with us. And towards the end of the day, they were doing his POV. And so he had to look at me going around the set now. And I was trying to be a helpful actor. And I was like, yo, I can do my movement for you, so you won't have to fake it. And I said, and he told me, I want you to get the hell out of here and take your makeup off and get the hell out of here. And I was like, hey, I'm ready to move. I said, I'm ready to go whenever you guys are. And I played it off like a joke and everything. The AD, Brian, later said, I think maybe sometimes he was used to being the only guy, on the set, and you come on and everybody's very amenable to you. He said, we kind of, he's like, everybody kind of likes you. And, and it was, my scene was made of, I'm not want to say a big deal, but it was a bit of a thing for Brian, who was the AD, that Rene was allowing him to direct my scenes. So it was kind of a big deal for him. So, and everybody on the crew was very supportive in that effort. So there was, there was just a little extra attention to certain things that were going on. So maybe it might have rubbed some people a little bit the wrong way. And so that's what happened.
Well, at that point, too, Micheal Dorn had just come on to work on DS9 because he had just wrapped up TNG a little while ago, and I think maybe by then he might have done the first movie. So I imagine it might have just been perhaps some growing pains. Maybe he was just, who knows, could have just been a cranky, bad day. But I'm sorry to hear that was a rough experience with Michael that day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I mean, hey, everybody has their bad days. I mean, I've had mine, and, it's one of those things. One of the first gigs I had in LA, I worked with Andrew McCarthy and in this film called The Courtyard. And I played a fireman. I had an under 5. And I was like, I had quick the fire spreading, and then I'm out. But for some reason, he took it upon himself that it was playtime for him. So, I got all the Magilla, the fire, everything, the 200 pounds of equipment. All the hoses are out here by the pool. And every time I go to do my line, he keeps moving further out to mess up the shot, and then blames it on me. And then he moves out so far one time that he makes me trip over one of the hoses. Now, see, the ironic thing at the time, my mom was there. Yeah, my mom happened to be visiting me. So it was the first thing on the first movie I did in LA. And I was like, hey, Mom, you never watched me do anything. Come on and go. So when I get there, the crew's like, dude, you brought your mom? I was like, yeah, they was like, dude, say no more. We got it covered. So Matthew, I come out, the crew's got my mom in a director's chair by the pool with a little table with snacks and another thing with beverages, cold beverages, and then a monitor here with a little umbrella over it. And it's like, they set it up, and I'm like, what? They're like, come on, dude, you brought your mom. I mean, come on, dude, you brought your mom. And I was like, thank you. But then to contrast, that happens, you get treated like that, and then you work with this person who I liked his work, that he treats you like this. But here's the lesson I learned, because I was upset, because we're actors. We're supposed to work together, right? So I was in class at the time with Tony Greco. Tony Greco is a person who was taught by Strasberg. So I was in that whole actor studio type of class situation. So I go back Monday, and I'm complaining about, he did this, that, and Tony said, F you. I was like, huh? I said, what? He said, Rod, what says that someone has to be nice to you? And I was like, but he said, who said he has to be nice to you? And that was like a big lesson, because you think, but that's not necessarily the case the way this business is. You do work like Armin, and I've worked with a bunch of people who were wonderful, but then I've also worked with other people that, hey, maybe they had something else was going on, and it wasn't such a great time, or maybe they lost their passion for what they were doing because they, it's not what it used to be. Who knows? But, it's up and down. It's just a lot of life lessons that you have to learn within this business.
So let's talk about shoot day now when you're working on DS9 here. So number one, the sets are crazy, and you're working on the Promenade, which is an enormous set, and you're working on the Promenade with Armin Shimerman, with Micheal Dorn, and with the person who's also directing you, Rene. So talk to me about just, again, by the way, I should mention, Rene is my favorite. I think his character Odo is the favorite of all my Star Trek characters ever. But, tell me about shooting time and what that's like for you.
Oh, it was wonderful. We started early in the morning, 3.5-hour makeup job. And the day of shooting is when they cemented The oh, it was like it was skin. Oh my goodness. Any little move, it would move. And the makeup artists on that show are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I took pictures of every stage of it. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. Then to have the makeup on and then put on the costume, the performance was room service, because I was already the voice. That I didn't plan that. The way the voice came out, that came out organically, and I mean, it was so wonderful to shoot and just to watch how it's wonderful to watch a show that they know exactly what they're doing, how to do it. They are such a well-oiled machine that I love it when a crew has a shorthand with one another. Oh, the thing. Oh, yeah. We got the other thing or the other thing. So it was just so good to listen to that, to listen to how the jib operator was moving in concert with the other camera, to watch me, that sweeping shot that comes in and around, and then where it comes and then the other one picks me up coming through the back. It was just wonderful to just watch how they caught all of that. And the sets, and the funny thing about it, sometimes you would think that, on a regular set, it's only this part over here that's actually a piece, but no, it's over there too. You're just happen to be in the middle of it. And there's maybe an opening over here that you can walk out of, but it's an actual full set with things that work. And so it's always fun for me to walk on a set like that, and especially when there's gadgets and stuff, and then you actually go up to where the board is, and you look at, oh, so that's what it actually really looks like. So it was so fascinating to do that. And to just work with Armin was really cool. And like I was telling
How
you,
serendipitous is that?
Yeah. And we had a great time doing it. And I learned from him with the makeup on how you should, and then the acting with that makeup on, the conservativeness of movement.
Yeah, I talked about that earlier, how, transitioning from theater into TV, how it's, here in theater, here on TV, here on film. So it's here on film, here on TV rather, but also now with makeup. So it's like a tiny little thumbnail.
Oh yeah. It's all in there. And so I watched him and I was like, okay, just lean in a little bit. You don't have to do too much, because everything else is working for you. Because here's the thing. What we have to understand, you see all of this. So you've already bought in. You've already bought a ticket for the ride.
Yeah.
So only thing you want is me to give you the stuff, just to give it to you. And so you're already ready. Come on, give it to me. And I delivered, just like, oh yes, wonderful. So we have to understand that half the job is done already. So we just have to naturally just lean into it. And I learned that from Rene, not to overdo it. Because one of the things I told you, Rene didn't necessarily direct my scene, but his AD, Brian, he let direct the scene. But Rene was there the whole time. And then he was also in the scene. So, and I had to also remember the note that Ron had given me about the ending of that when I get busted. So it was a lot to think about. And it was a lot to concentrate on and make, because, when you're doing that show, you want to be there, present, and doing your best work, because everybody's going to see it. So it was just, I really wanted to be disciplined and focused on what I did. I mean, I remember by the time I left there at 1 o'clock in the morning, from being there like at 6 in the morning, I was totally worn out. But it was a great experience. And when it came out, I was very happy with it.
Did you watch it the first time it aired?
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. All my family did and stuff. And it was so funny because I didn't tell them, you know, who exactly I was. And my aunt was like, oh, I knew it was you when you came on the screen. I was like, how did you know? She said, I know my nephew when I see him. I was like, okay, Auntie Callie. But it was a great time. It was a great time. Great time.
So that's your time on Star Trek, but of course your career is far more than just that, as we've already discussed today. And there's one other thing I want to talk about with you, because I saw this on IMDb, and I'm curious to know what your involvement was. I saw that you worked with 40 Acres and a Mule, which is Spike Lee's film company. And I think the credit is for Miracle of Santa Ana, so I'm curious to know what you did with that company, and if you got to actually spend any quality time with Spike Lee.
Oh, I've spent lots of time with Spike. Actually, if you go back on my resume, there's a film called The Session and also a film called Drop Squad. Drop Squad, Spike was the executive producer for that film. It came out in 1994. Drop Squad Pictures was an organization that myself, 4 brothers from Howard, and 1 gentleman from Hampton started back in 1989. We did the short film, The Session. Spike saw it. Many people saw it, you know, but then a couple years later, he decided he wanted to executive produce the film. From that point on, from 94 on, Drop Squad produced mostly everything that Spike did. Now, a lot of people don't know that. We were the production company behind 40 Acres that was doing a lot of the work. So I've known Spike since the 80s. When he started out, I auditioned for, when I first met him, when I auditioned for School Days back in the 80s, back in like 86 or 87 or something like that. So I've worked with Spike. I've worked with him, Miracle St. Anna, Passing Strange, a plethora of commercials. He and I, we've done some, I've worked with him on casting a couple of commercials that he's done. Like I said, I've worked closely with him for a number of years. Good guy. 40 Acres is a part of the family of Black filmmakers that I was a part of coming up in the 80s in New York, especially in Brooklyn. So I have a long history with Spike Lee and his whole family.
Well, I got to press you a little bit more on this here, because you can't spend that many years with Spike Lee and not learn something, not have a little bit of him rub off on you. So tell me, at least give me something here. What's like something that he's, this is similar to the question I asked you at the start of the show. What's something that he told you, some piece of advice about anything that stuck with you, you still think about today, maybe you still use it today?
Well, there's a couple of things I learned. And Spike, it's not always what Spike says to you, but it's about how you watch it. And
so not about the words necessarily, more about the tone sometimes?
Yeah, well, it's about the tone and then what you see him do. Like, have you seen that new documentary, The Captain?
I have not seen that yet, no.
You need to watch it. Spike executive produced it, and he got Randy Wilkins to direct it. He's one of our young filmmakers who came through 40 Acres. And I work with Randy. But I say all that to say is I watch Spike, how he works with people and how he doesn't give it to you, but he shows you the pathway of how to do things. One of the things that was very significant for me watching him in the beginning, he demystified the whole film process. Every film that his first 5 films, there's a companion book to each one of them. I read each one of those books because it demystified how movies were made. Because for a while, especially in the Black community, you didn't have years ago, Oscar Micheal and different people were doing things years ago. But in the 80s, there weren't a lot of Black films that were really happening. And so when he wrote those books, demystifying it, and then he made because we call it Spike Lee University. There were all the people that have worked for Spike over the years. What he did was, if they say, okay, this guy's the grip. Okay, yes, he's the grip. But then you gotta back him up with a Black person that you're gonna teach him how to be a grip also. So he had a Black person shadowing every person on the set so they could learn. Wow.
So you're really paying it forward every shoot.
Yeah, it was like he made sure that everybody that learned, he's responsible. Spike is single-handedly responsible for a number of people, of Black people, Black and brown people being in the unions to this very day. And he's always been an advocate like that. And so I give him so much props. Like I said, he helped demystify what a film was. When you see She's Gotta Have It, and it's like, wow, that was just like, the thing. And so then it was like, okay, well, we can do that too. And so we went ahead and our group got together. We was like, okay, so we're going to start doing films. And so, he just led the charge, man. He just really led the charge for filmmakers.
Now, can I nerd out with you for a few moments here on Spike Lee films? Because I don't really get to do this in the show ever. But what's your favorite Spike Lee film? And I'm going to go first, just because I want to see if I'm going to change your thoughts here. But I personally,
go ahead.
I think Malcolm X is an amazing epic of a film. But personally, for me, I find Do the Right Thing to be the one I like to analyze the most. So I think for me, that's my favorite because there's so much meat hidden inside that film. I feel like that's to me like to me. I think that is that's like the one for me that does it. What about you?
Do the Right Thing was wonderful. I enjoyed it. They started shooting that right when I moved to New York in '88. But I got to go back to the first one. She's Gotta Have It. For some reason, I just fell in love with that film. And it was black and white. It did everything that was a film was supposed to do. A beginning, a middle, and an end. And it had complex characters, complex issues, but then it had beauty within it. I thought the cinematography, Ernest's cinematography was simplistic, yet beautiful. And I think he and Spike really worked together. It was one of those first times where I saw Black people on film, and I just say that they were really beautiful. They were shot, they were shot well. They looked good. The lighting was well done. It was like it was almost a love letter.
Yeah, I think for me, I personally like a lot of Spike's earlier stuff just because I feel like, to me, one of the biggest things about his earlier work is the fact that there is always conflict involved in pretty much all those things, But it's not just the conflict that's happening, that's the premise of the movie, that's the narrative, It's more like you're seeing the inner conflict of all the characters and you're seeing their turmoil, and you're also seeing a lot of the intricate, complicated relationships people have with each other. And that can just go on, I could wax poetic about all of that stuff, but I feel like, again, Do the Right Thing is, for me, like that great encapsulation of what Spike Lee does best. Get on the Bus, I think, is kind of the same way.
Oh,
as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Get on, and that's, I think Get on the Bus is an underrated film.
Absolutely.
I
would never say it's underrated, but it's a great film.
Yeah. But I do have to say, I loved Malcolm X. Yeah. I got a chance to work one day on it, and it was just really amazing to watch Angela and Denzel work. It was just like,
what a transformation Denzel did.
And he's business. He is about business. And, when you see someone like that focused, you just make sure you stay out of his way and make sure that, if you have something to do for him, you make sure you do it. and then get out of the way so he can come in there and do his thing. And it was good to watch a consummate professional like that.
And shout out to the upcoming film that Spike Lee's doing, Prince of Cats, which is based on Ron Wimberly's comics. I'm a fan of his artwork, and I've known Ron for some time. Not really that well, but he went to the same art school I went to, so I knew him through that, and I got to meet him at Comic Cons and stuff, and like such a really cool dude and great artist, and I'm so legitimately happy that like Spike Lee found out about him and found out about what he does. Because if you don't know, Prince of Cats is going to basically be like his version of Romeo and Juliet that he did, and it's like an urban Brooklyn style setting for Romeo and Juliet. It's so cool. I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
in.
I'm very
I'm
curious.
in.
Yeah. I cannot wait for that.
I'm in. Okay, cool. I'm in for that one. Definitely. Wow. Okay, cool.
So Roderick, as we come to a little bit more of a close now, let's rapid fire some stuff at you right now. So you can't think too hard about these. Just got to answer right away. Even though they're going to probably be really hard to answer. So let's see how this goes. So first thing for you, best day on a set, worst day on a set.
Best day on a set. Doing the film Drop Squad. We got rained out. The actual scene actual scene I was supposed to, and character I was supposed to play. The whole family reunion got rained out for the whole weekend. So they had to cut that scene and redo it. So the person who was supposed to play the character I ended up playing in Drop Squad couldn't come back that Tuesday because he had booked something else. So one of the things I had told the producer and the director before I got there, I told them I knew the whole script. And they were like, excuse me? I said, no, I know the whole script, every character. They were like, okay, they're good friends of mine. And they were like, okay. So when that happened, they were like, hey, Rod, we need you to step in. So I created that character with Butch Robinson saying one word to me. He said, bad doo-doo maker. I was like, okay. So I went in there with the scene with Eric LaSalle. So I improv'd everything. And that scene came out to be one of the pivotal moments in the film. And then it's just in the making of the film, because it turned out to be a cast and crew favorite of everybody. And it kind of, within the production of the film, kind of pushed me into a different stratosphere. So that would be the best day. The worst day on set, I would say, was when I was doing a Budweiser commercial out in California. And we were doing stunts. The stunt was jumping out of a plane when it's taxiing down the runway. And the producers were really not good. They were trying to intimidate folks. There were a few people that were on the production that were actors who this was their first commercial. Fortunately, myself and one other guy, Tom McComas, who was a stuntman and also one of the actors in the piece, we'd been around the block for a while. And these producers trying to tell us that, oh, this isn't a stunt. This isn't a stunt. Or, this is this, and trying to intimidate people. And I was just like, no, this is a stunt. If I jump out of this plane, it's a stunt. I had to stand up for myself as an actor. And it was one of those times where, an actor shouldn't have to fight every single day to get treated with the respect that they're supposed to get. I mean, it was a situation of, they told me, well, if you want breakfast, you got to get here 2 hours early. I was like, no, that's not what the rules are. When I get here, my call time, my breakfast is supposed to be there. And then they also, they try to cheat you out of hours, when they don't, when the production, when you work with an unprofessional company that don't know how to schedule their day properly, then when they've realized that they put themselves out and they're like, oh, well, you can take a whole hour now for lunch. but previously saying, oh, no, you only get a half hour for lunch. And then at the last minute say, oh, well, you can have an hour. I said, oh, no. It's not my fault that you don't know how to prepare and be ready. I said, so my half hour ends here and I'm back on the clock again. And that was one of those things I had to constantly fight with the producers and the AD for the 2 to 3 days that we shot that. And that was the first time well, no, I won't talk about that. That was, one of those days where it was difficult. It was difficult.
So how about a moment from your performing career that was the most challenging, but also ultimately became the most rewarding?
I did this play called the Lifetime on the Streets. I can't remember the author of it, but anyway, I played this character called Streetwalker. Now, I first saw this play at the Negro Ensemble Company in New York City. So this is about 95-ish.
Okay.
So listen to the cast of the play. Vanessa Williams, as in Vanessa Williams from Melrose Place and all those, not the singer, but the actress Vanessa Williams. They're in a Karen Molina White. If you saw the pictures of the people, you were like, oh my goodness, Black Hollywood was in effect. And this particular character I played was very challenging because the character's friend had been killed in a movie theater, in a gay movie theater. So he was talking about the whole experience that he was having. And it was a very challenging role because, you don't want to be stereotypical with any of you want to give the text the gravitas that it requires. And I remember this one particular night. Now we did it at Maskers in the Fairfax area, and all of Black Hollywood was there. The cast of Different World and a bunch of other shows, they were all there, and it was dinner theater. And so, with dinner theater, there's a lot of clink clink and all that sort of stuff. And so I go up there, and of course I'm into my monologue, and it's the clink. You hear the clink clink and everything. But the thing with the character, you think that he's going to go this way, and he ends up going to the left. And the significance of that was I heard the air leave the room. All noise ceased. I felt I had the audience in the palm. They went to the right. They went to the left. Matthew, it was one of the things that, and I knew it was something significant where nobody clapped until after I left the stage. And it was one of those. And then it just became a roar too. And a bunch of people came up to me. I didn't know everybody who was there that night, but there was a couple people who, prominent actors in town that I saw later, or maybe a year or two or so later. Hey, yo, I remember you. You were in that show. You were in that show at Masters. What was Lifetime on the Streets, right? Yo, man. Yo, I really dug what you did, and that happened a bunch of times. I'm like, I'm at an audition. Excuse me. Did you do something? And so to me, when kind of like back to when I was talking about in the beginning about understanding the acknowledgments, when, you get fellow actors, your peers that come up to you and say something to you about the work that you're doing. That's the reward. It's not about the flashy stuff. That'll come, yeah. But when other actors who are, they're in pursuit of the craft, when they come up to you and they sincerely, yo, I really, because I will be the first one. I've done it to many people. I've made friends because I've seen actors and like, oh my goodness, man, I just wanted Robert Loggia. I waited on him when I was worked at Banana Republic and didn't say anything until after we finished. I said, I really love your work. He was like, oh, you're an actor. And then when I told him that, he wanted to have a conversation. So, it's that thing where another actor, another artist comes to you and talks to you about what we do. Oh man. Whew, it's nothing like it, man.
That sounds like a great moment, and I love that story. And not to go on a tangent, but I'm about to, because I want to bring this back to what I was saying about Spike Lee a little bit ago. And there's a word I wanted to say, but I just forgot it because my brain sometimes just goes funny like that. But I was talking about the inner conflict and the turmoil of characters, and hearing your story about this show kind of reminds me of that. And it's not just that it was the conflict, the turmoil rather. It's the identity that's inherent within the characters in Spike Lee films. And when I say identity, not just the identity of what is essentially their inner monologues, so that kind of thing, but more the fact that Spike Lee is directing people of color, and their story is a very different experience than the average white person film. And, hearing you talk about this play, which, again, I'm not super familiar with, I don't really know much about it at all than what you've just told me about it, but, to have a person of color and also having this inner conflict of the person that they know dying in a gay movie theater, that's like a culture clash in a lot of ways, too. So,
especially within the Black community, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that was the conflict. Because then I can't be stereotypical.
Yeah.
How could I? That would be a slap in the face to everybody.
I mean, you're basically trying to honor two different communities, trying to honor people of color and trying to honor the LGBTQ community. And that's
but
wrong.
You got to do it because I have friends, relatives, and so it was because Lifetime, all those characters in the play were people that you would meet on the street. That it was basically how we would always describe the play as, if you were walking down the street, this happens just to be the story of the person you just passed. You just didn't get the whole story, but this is that person. Oh, you see that person, oh, they're homeless, or they're doing bottles, but he has a story. Oh, that woman over here, oh, she looks like she's got it together. Oh, but then but this is something that's happened with her. Oh, she's married and her husband's not really checking for her. And so it's these stories on the street that you pass by. But then the thing is, you pass by these people every day and you don't know what's going on with them.
That's some powerful stuff. And, throughout this interview, I've asked you a bunch of questions about things like, advice someone gave you or things that someone told you, stuff like that. And this is going to be, I guess, the culmination of those, because what is the most valuable thing someone ever told you about life or about acting that you still think about and use today?
Wow. There's a couple things. Richard Gant, the actor, auditioned me for my first play when I was about 15 when I was about 16 years old. So I met him when I was 16. I saw him again my sophomore year in college when he was on tour with Sam Jackson doing Home. Then fast forward in 1994 or something, I saw him again in Los Angeles, California, when I was working at Kinko's. And he was like, you stuck with it. That's what you want to do. So one of the things, we ended up working on a film. And he said to me, he was like, how old are you? And I was in my 30s at the time. He was like, nah, you haven't hit your stride yet. He said, look, he said, when you get in your 40s, your 50s and whatever, He said, you will continue to work constantly. And what I became to understand what he was talking about is that when you get to a certain stage in your career as an actor, you know, when you're first starting out, you're going like, you're testing me. Is it here? It's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. No. The age I am now, I know it's right there. So there's a comfort that comes with that. There's a confidence that comes with that. There's a introspection that comes with maturing as an artist where I can sit comfortably within myself and be. Whereas when I was a younger actor, I was hoping to get there or maybe was relying on tricks. Because, you know, we actors, we got a lot of tricks we do. So he taught me how to, his mentorship taught me how to sit and be comfortable within who I am. Now, another lesson that I learned from James Pickens, who is on Grey's Anatomy. He plays the chief doctor there. I've known Pick for years. He was also with the Negro Ensemble Company. And I asked him years ago, how do you stay in it? What is it that you have to do in order to stay in this and stay focused? He was like, you have to find your spiritual base. He said, because when you find that, everything else will come from there, because the business that we're in is extremely fickle. Extremely fickle. Like I said to you before, the things you think you're going to get, you don't get. The things you don't get, or you get the things you don't think you're going to get, and then vice versa. And it's topsy-turvy. It's, you know, it's upside down day, whatever. Or, you know, you're wearing green this one day, but blue's the color. And so you miss out on that job. So there's no rhyme or reason. But he told me that if you have a spiritual base, you won't be rocked by those things, you know, because I think Tom Hanks said it the best when he was on the Inside the Actor Studio. He said, you got to really love what you're doing, because that love of this art is going to sustain you, because you don't get into this business because you want to be famous or you want to be a movie star and rich. No, that's not going to sustain you, because that ain't going to help you when Matthew, I remember in 2000, February of 2000, I had $75 in my bank account. And what I would do every morning would go, not Runyon Canyon, but up in Laurel Canyon and walk in the mountains. And I would go up there and walk and pray and meditate every morning. And this one morning, I was like, Lord, what we gonna do? And it was because I had that spiritual base. I was able to have faith, because that week I had an audition for a Budweiser commercial that I told you about. Mm-hmm. Then I got the call back with $75 in my bank account. And that's the only thing I could hold on to. So when you do this, it's got to be more than I want to be famous. I want to be rich and famous. I want to be a star and stuff like that, man, because that ain't going to help when you got to really dig deep down and keep going. I mean, Matthew, do you realize how many people give up? There's so many, and talented people too.
It's a rough journey and not everybody can handle it.
Exactly. And and it makes people go crazy. You see some of the things that happened recently or in years past that happened to people in this business, and people want to, toss folks to the side, and it's rough because the thing is what a lot of people don't understand, where acting is the only business that you are the instrument itself. You're not once removed from what you're doing. It's you. It's personal. So when an actor, check this out, a civilian could not deal with 1 year's of rejection that an actor has to go through. A year of rejection for an actor is a lifetime of rejection for a civilian. And see what happens to civilians when they get rejected, what happens to them. But it happens to us constantly. And it's not saying there's like saying, no, we don't like you. I have a friend, a well-known actress and she's a gorgeous woman. They told her she wasn't pretty enough. Who are you to tell? Who are you to tell somebody you're not? To whose standard you're not pretty enough? And you got to sit with stuff like that, or you're too fat, or you're this, you're that. I don't like you because here's the thing: sometimes folks on the other side, they take it personal. Directors, casting directors, they take it, and we're just coming in wanting to avail ourselves because this is what we love. This is what we want to do. So it's a rough road.
Folks I talk to, it's always the ones who make it. They're the ones who are passionate about it, and they're doing it essentially art for art's sake. They're doing it for the journey itself of acting and for themselves. Finding something within themselves to make it matter. Yeah,
man. Oh yeah, it's not for everybody, but I love the fact that this is what I'm able to do for a living. I love it. I mean, I'm a working actor. I didn't ask to be a star. I wanted to work and make a living at what I love doing. And I've been able to do that. So, and I continue to do that.
That's kind of the basis for this show too, to bring this back full circle. And, it's to talk to folks like you who are the true working backbones of the industry. Because without you guys, the stars need someone to elevate them up there. And it's up to you guys to do that. So, it's very true when I say it. And that's why I'm always happy to talk to, no matter what the person's done in Star Trek, whether it's 1 gig or 18 gigs or whatever, it's always important. There's always a story. So.
Oh yeah. That's why, and that's one of the reasons why I was happy to do that, because of the fact, and because I listened to one of your other podcasts, the young lady who did Passenger 57.
Alex Datcher. Yep.
Yeah. And because there are those stories, and I'm always fascinated by those stories because I always like to read about other actors. Like, I've read Dick Van Dyke's autobiography, which I thought was fascinating. I also have Debbie Reynolds. She's just like, she was one of my favorite, the MGM, that whole thing. So, I like to listen and read about who came before me and what was their journey and their experiences, because you can always glean so much. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's other people that have come before you that can teach you these lessons. And, like my dad always said, a smart person learns from other people's mistakes. I was like, got it.
I think that's the most valuable piece of advice right there.
Oh yeah. He said that to me about my brother, because my brother blew his scholarship off to college. And then when he did that, he just looked at me and said, a smart person learns from other people's mistakes. And I know you're a smart person. And I just looked at him and was like, got it.
That is our lesson for the day, folks. If you take anything away from this interview, that's the one right there. Roderick, let's bring this full circle right now, though, and let me ask you our final question here. What is the best thing about being a part of the Star Trek universe?
Man, people like you. You know, I really had no idea the breadth and just the strength and of everything Star Trek. You know, I got something through my agent a number of years ago where someone was asked me if I had the trading cards. And I was not aware that there are Star Trek trading cards.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, he was like, do you have your cards? I was like, so I'm on the trading card? That's cool. And you know, one of the things is just like, you know, like I learned through my friends that these folks are loyal. They're really dedicated to this. And man, I mean, the show was only on for 3 years. The original show was only on for 3 years. But the impact that it made, you know, I didn't realize until I was older that it was only on for such a short period of time because of the fact the reruns all the time. I thought it was, you know, still going on until, you know, they made the newer versions, but it's something that's enduring. And so to be within the pantheon of the Star Trek universe, it's great. I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed like sitting. I got a chance to sit down with Michael Westmore, one of the best guys in the makeup game in the movie industry. I mean, who took time with me to sit and talk to a kid who was just fascinated by the stuff and gave me his time. I mean, who does that? He's a very busy man, but he took the time because he saw that I was fascinated. And that's the whole thing, Matthew, about other artists I've met. Michael Westmore, okay, of course, now the gentleman who did the movie Hairspray, John Waters. I worked on that film. He saw that I was interested in film. So, you know, he was like, oh, you can look through the monitor. You know, he, like Michael, took time. Oh, you're interested in this? Come here. Let me show you something. And it was like that on the set of Star Trek. That it was a whole collaborative effort. And so you see, now I understand why people are so dedicated to it, because so much goes into that whole world. I mean, and they really painstakingly go the extra mile. You know, the wardrobe, the makeup. Like I said, it was something I can go back now, and I was like, you know, I did that in 95. I can go back and look at those pictures, and I show people this stuff now. Like, I put something up on IG, I think a year or two ago, and it was like the anniversary of me doing it. And it was on IG and Facebook, and everybody, oh my goodness, you did, and it was like, I didn't know you did that, oh my goodness. And I was like going, oh, you didn't? I was like, yeah, you know, and so and there were other people that are seen for the first time, like, you did Star Trek? I didn't know. Oh my goodness. And then other people, because then you know how people will tag it and they'll share it and share it and share it. Yep. So I got a lot of other people coming on, go like, oh wow. You know, people I didn't know from other parts of the country or whatever. I didn't know you were on Star Trek. Oh my, that must have been a great experience. And it was. It really was a great experience. So that is one of the things I hold on to from that whole thing. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And, you know, just kind of bring it back what you just said too, you know, the fact that so many people have been willing to take the time with you to teach you and show you things. And I appreciate you doing that today with us as well, and with my entire audience, because you've given us a lot of gifts today, given us a lot to think about. You know, you had a lot of great stories, a lot of really excellent insight into things. And, you know, I don't get to say this enough, because unfortunately, as progressive as Star Trek is, to be quite honest, there's not a ton of black actors who did 90s Star Trek, and even then who had like big major roles. And I've had a chance to talk to a good number of them, but their experiences in the industry are so different. And it's amazing to hear that. So, you know, I'm very grateful that you took this time to tell us all about that. And, you know, your life experiences, everything else, all your professional work as well. So thank you so much, Roderick, for talking with us today.
Matthew, my pleasure. One of the things I think is very important that I pass on the knowledge because someone passed it on to me. They took the time, as we were talking, they took the time to show me things. And I've learned that interesting thing. I found out something last year when my mom passed, that this young man, it said something. Oh, I just was talking about Roderick Garr the other day in an interview I was doing and talking about how he inspired me. I'm like going, I inspired you. And then I kind of looked the gentleman up and saw that I was friends with him on Facebook and all of the plethora of things that he did. He wrote, acted, was writer and everything, all these different things. And I hit him on Facebook and I said, I'm very humbled that you said that I inspired you, but how could I have inspired you? He said, when I was 12 years old, you were performing at this one place and you were doing poetry. And he said, man, you made it look cool. And he said so at 12 years old, I said I wanted to do poetry too, because I saw you doing it and it looked cool, and everybody liked what you were doing. And I was just like, wow. So here's the thing. None of us knows the impact that, unbeknownst to me, the kids in the audience, I've still never met this gentleman, but something I did inspired him because of the fact of a talent that God put in me. And I call that the gift because we never know as artists what people are going through. We don't know what day they're going, what struggles they are. And I've also been approached before when a woman said to me, she said, before I heard you sing, I didn't have the Christmas spirit. But since I heard you sing, now I have the Christmas spirit. And I talked to my cousin Byron about that. I said, that's really special, man. I said, because we don't know where these people are coming from. And I said, but for maybe the time that they come, the hour or two or whatever, that they come see us perform, maybe something we do inspires them, makes their life a little brighter. It makes them feel like, ooh, I have energy to keep going, or whatever it does to refresh them, and whatever. That is a gift from God that you're actually able to change the molecular structure in someone's brain by something I've done. That is amazing to me.
I'm going to mess you up right here, Roderick, because I'm going to make you take a step back from your life for a minute here. And what you did for that 12-year-old person who you inspired is what Sammy Davis Jr. did for you when you were 11. And that right there, that's power, right? So you've paid it forward in your life, and I'm very lucky the fact that I can say I've got now this time with you that's going to be out there in the audio world on YouTube, so people can find you and keep hearing your stories and keep hearing all that. So we're getting the message out there.
Amen. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roderick.
I have a film that's coming out.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, please tell us.
Yes, I have a film. It's called If My People. It will it'll be on sale starting next month. You can go to ifmypeoplethemovie.com, www.ifmypeoplethemovie.com. You can buy the DVD. It's a movie that talks about basically the premise of the film is a pastor has a vision, a dream of, he says, 40 days hence, where basically he has the vision. He puts it out, puts a speech out on YouTube, talks about bringing everyone together, all the races together under church. Because one of the things that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X said, at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is the most segregated time in America. So basically what this film is talking about is bringing the races together under Christ. It's a faith-based film. I play Deacon Lou. I'm like the second lead in it. Also, Anthony Sean Vaughn plays Pastor Lev, who is the lead. And also Mark David Kennerly is the writer and director of the film. And it's a wonderful film. Like I said, it's coming out September.
So by the time this episode airs, that movie's going to be already out. So everybody who wants to check it out can check the show notes in the description below. We're going to have links to where you can go to the official website, as well as hopefully places you can watch it. You can stream it wherever you're going to get it. So make sure you do not miss it out.
Great.
Make sure you do not miss it. That's the way to say that word. Make sure you don't miss it, folks. I'll leave in that blooper in. I can't cut that one. I can't cover that one. Well, thank you so much, Roderick. This has been wonderful. So really appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you so much, Matthew. I really enjoyed it. I had a wonderful time.
That's it for this week's episode of Trek Untold. Until next time, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Trek Untold, all one word. If you'd like to directly support this podcast, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter over on patreon.com/TrekUntold, which gives you access to some great perks that can't be beat. Or pick up some merchandise from our store, or use my Amazon shop link to check out all kinds of different Star Trek merchandise. Links for all these things are in the show notes. Shout out to Triple Fiction Productions for being a key sponsor of Trek Untold. Don't forget to check them out and all of the fine folks whose ads you've seen or heard on this podcast too. If you have any questions, feedback, or comments for the show, or would like to suggest a guest or discuss sponsorship options for any of these episodes in the future, send me a message at trekuntold@gmail.com. I hope to see you here again as we uncover more untold stories from Star Trek and beyond, and get to know even more amazing people who have contributed to this ever-expanding universe. Until next time, I'm Matthew Kaplowitz, and remember, fortune favors the bold.
Trek Untold is sponsored by TrekSphere.com, promoting fan-produced Star Trek content in all forms, is powered by the RageWorks podcasting network, and is affiliated with Nerd News Today.